What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and today I'm going to tell you about my visit at REL HQ. They flew me out for the unveiling of the new Series S. There was some other content creators there, and I'm just going to tell you guys about it. Now, before I left, I asked you guys, the audience, if you had any questions you wanted me to ask REL directly, and you guys gave me those questions, so I got answers for those questions. We'll cover that about the second half of the video. First, I just want to kind of have a little hangout session with you guys and just tell you what it was like. So they flew me out. They paid for the trip, the hotel, the flight, my Ubers, things like that. That was very nice. Good hospitality. I get to Oakland and take an Uber into Berkeley, and I see the Golden Gate Bridge. And guys, it's just a bridge. It is just a bridge. I was expecting so much more, but it's just a bridge like any other bridge. Anyway, I digress. I get to the hotel. I met some other content creators, like a gentleman from the Absolute Sound, a gentleman from the Future Audiophile magazine. Everyone was super cool. There was about 5 content creators that were like hardcore audiophiles. And then the other, about 10 of them were more short form, general tech content creators. I get checked into my hotel room. I go in and there's a tote bag there that's REL branded, a little goodie bag, if you will, right? There's an album in there, a REL branded hat, a REL branded t-shirt, as well as some snacks. And I just thought that was a nice touch, made me feel welcome. We all went back downstairs to hop in the Sprinter van to go to REL HQ. And as I'm walking up, I see John Hunter there. I go to shake his hand. Guys, I trip, I stumble, and I fall, and I just land right on him. Luckily, John's taller than me, and he caught me. He saved my life, basically. And just immediately, I made a fool out of myself. I was so embarrassed. But luckily, he caught me, so I didn't like fall on the ground. But that was the first thing that happened. And this is in front of like a lot of the staff that are like downstairs there to welcome us. So that was just awesome, right? I go upstairs, and then like right away, someone's just like, "Oh my God, what's up, Nemo?" And this guy gives me this great big hug, scares the crap out of me. I have no idea who he is or what's going on. And I look at him, I'm like, "Dude, who are you?" And he told me his name, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it was one of my contacts there that I interact with a lot." I mean, for years, me and this guy have sent a ton of emails back and forth. We've had a ton of phone calls. He knows what I look like because he sees my videos. I've never seen this man's face. And I looked at him, I'm like, "Brother, you got to tell me who you are. I've never seen your face." And he's like, "Oh, damn, that's crazy. You're right. Sorry about that." And it was just funny, but it was super nice to finally put a face to the name of one of the employees that I've had like the highest level of communication with. This is the guy that, helps me get my return label when I'm done with a review. This is the guy I'll email if I've got a question about something and stuff like that. I talk to John Hunter as well, in these situations, especially when I have more complex questions, but I'm not going to email John Hunter about, "Hey, can you send me this? Hey, like I'm finished here. Can I have a return label?" Right. So that was really cool. And all the staff was there. There was some refreshments there, some drinks, some sandwiches. So again, good hospitality. I got to see the white HT range. I hadn't seen that in person yet. That was nice. They had some T9Xs on the floor in the colors, in the green and in the blue. And those are all like race car color inspirations. I thought that was pretty cool. John Hunter gave a speech, kind of thanked us for coming out and told us what, we'd be seeing, which was nice. And then group 1, which I was a part of, which was like the hardcore audiophiles, went down to the listening room. Now, some of you guys might expect REL to have a grand and beautiful and over-the-top listening room with 6-packs and just elaborate stuff, right? Nope, not at all. Their listening room is in fact very blue-collar, very similar to your average small to medium living room. And I asked John Hunter about this. I was like, "Hey, just curious. You could have built a massive room. You chose to build a smaller room. Why?" And he's like, "Look, I'd love to have this beautiful, big, elaborate listening space. I'd enjoy the heck out of that. But we got to think about our customers that buy our products. We certainly have customers with elaborate ballroom style living rooms, but the bulk of our customers are blue collar people with small to medium sized living rooms. So this is where we do a lot of our R&D." And I thought that was very down to earth of them. And most of the employees there were very down-to-earth people. And speaking of the people, let me touch on one thing before I tell you about this sound demo. Something I noticed about the REL staff, every single person there recognized me, knew who I was, and was able to tell me about my videos. So for sure, literally everyone there has watched my videos. Now, at first you might think like that's normal. Guys, that is not. So not all these people are salespeople. Some of these people just work in finance, right? So I was asking the woman who worked in finance because she was telling me specifically why she liked one of my videos. I was like, hey, are you an audiophile? And she's like, no. She's like, I love good sound, of course. A lot of people do, but no, I don't have a home theater. I don't have like a big stereo. Like I handle the finances. And I'm like, okay, cool. I got to ask, like, what, because hi-fi content is dry and boring if you're not an audiophile, right? So I was like, hey, like, why did you watch my video? I just got to ask. Is it like required? And she's like, no, not at all. She's like, I love watching people's reviews of our products. We work so hard on them and, we put so much effort into them. Like, I like to see what people think about them. And, she was smiling as she was saying this. And I just like realized like this person is so passionate about what they do. And throughout this trip, almost every interaction I had with every employee was like that. These people were all so passionate about what they do. They're all on board. They're all on fire for this, whether it's someone in marketing, someone in sales, the engineers, people who work in finance, people who manage the website. Like, everyone loves what they do. So whoever handles the hiring at REL or is responsible for the culture there, my hat is off to you. You did a fantastic job. Guys, I travel a lot for a living. I visit a lot of companies as part of my day job. I meet a lot of staff. I can count on one hand how many times I've seen a company where everyone is that passionate, positive, and happy. That was incredible. So back to the demo. So we're in their listening room, about 10 feet wide, 20 feet deep. It's got some nice room acoustics, some Franco Serblin towers set up, and a pair of REL carbon special black labels in the corners. Just two of them, nothing else. They play this movie demo, and there's a helicopter that flies overhead a few times and then eventually crashes into the ground. And as the helicopter's overhead, you hear and feel the like thump, thump, thump of the rotors, right? And it's so powerful, and it's coming from above. Like, this bass pressure is bearing down on me, coming from the direction of the helicopter above head. So I look up just to see like what kind of Atmos setup they have, or maybe they have some like bass reinforcement up there. And John Hunter sees me do this and goes, it's just 5.2. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? So I asked him about that later, like, hey, because I've been in theaters where they can have that kind of effect, but these are like theaters where my friends have spent like $100K or more. They have like this elaborate Atmos setup. They have 4 to 6 subwoofers. And I'm like, what's like, how does this happen? That was like so convincing. That spatial cue really felt like it was coming from above me, and it was bass. It wasn't even sound. So it's not like the speakers were doing it. And John Hunter explained that when you have a pair of high quality subwoofers that are very resolving, very quick, can be very impactful, very dynamic and things like that, you can create spatial effects like that with the bass just by setting them up in the room properly and, getting things dialed in. He's like, it's not incredibly difficult. Most end users should be able to accomplish this with just a little bit of time and experimentation. And like I said, I've heard that like an effect like that before, but like with Atmos, with 4 to 6 subwoofers. I've never heard that effect in 5.2. That was incredible. So, we asked him a couple of questions in that room, a little bit of mingling, and then we left so the next group of, content creators could go in and hear their demo. And I mingled with some more people. They had a bunch of Series S subwoofers set up, the double stack black label, the carbon special, the S550, the S850. I got to kind of get up close and personal with all of them, get some close-ups of that beautiful new wood grill. That's optional, by the way. They still do ship with fabric grills for anyone who's curious. And then we went into the warehouse where we got to chat with some engineers. They had a Series S850 that was disassembled. They had the driver, plate amp, cabinet all separate. And I noticed this plate amp had this massive toroidal power supply on it. And I'm like, dude, that is an expensive way to build a Class D plate amp. So I asked the engineer, like, hey, why did you make the choice to use such an expensive part there? And his answer was really simple. He was just like, we tried a bunch of stuff. That's how it sounded its best. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Good for you. Like, you guys really care about what you do. After that, excuse me, I think we just went back to the hotel, chilled for a while, and then we went out for dinner. Dinner was like Nothing really crazy, you know what I mean? They weren't trying to buy anyone off. This wasn't like a Michelin star restaurant. I think the average price on the menu was like $25, very regular restaurant. But it was very good. Berkeley's like a bit of a hipster spot. So all the restaurants are like that good hipster food, right? After the dinner, we went to a little bit of like a live music presentation. That was really nice. I have baby ears and can't handle live music. It's just too loud for me. So I quietly left when no one was looking. And I was walking back to my hotel room. And guys, I did the craziest thing. I've never done this in my life. I walked by this psychic. And then I went back and I got a psychic reading. And it was really interesting. I can't tell you anything because I asked her a lot of personal questions, but it was just really interesting. I don't necessarily believe in that sort of thing. I just thought it was fun. And I'm like, why not? You know, give this girl $50, whatever. She probably needs it. Who cares? So that was all of day one, right? The key takeaway from day one here is the staff cares, man. Like all of them. Like they all like what they do. That was not something I knew. And that I don't think that's something I could have known without going to visit them. Also, REL is a very down-to-earth company, despite having subwoofers that some of them are, you know, not blue collar, right? Like a number 32 is not a blue collar subwoofer, right? These people are all like very down to earth, very down to earth. I mean, in REL's listening room, they could have had a 6-pack. They could have had an elaborate like 16.4 system, right? It was just 5.2. They were trying to show us you could do a lot without being overly complex, without having a 6-pack or 4 subwoofers, you know, one in each corner. With a stereo pair of subs and 5-channel theater, you can do so much. Wow. Okay. Day two was just a bonus day. Day 2 was just hospitality. They didn't even have to do this, but it was really nice of them. Day 2, they took us to Amoeba Music, gave us like a $25 gift card so we could buy some CDs or vinyl, stuff like that. You guys know I'm not a physical media person, so I just gave my gift card to someone else to use. Amoeba's, I've never been to an Amoeba, but they have a ton of stuff there, ton of stuff. After that, we went to a studio. This studio, I don't know what era it's from, maybe 50s or 60s. This studio had so much heritage. They had a bathroom that Stevie Nicks designed, and this was her personal bathroom for a while. I couldn't believe that. They did have a REL S8 550 in one of the rooms for where the sound engineer was. And there was just so much cool vintage stuff there. Like there was these like vintage acoustic panels that were like wrapped in velvet that you could tell were just like 40 years old. And there was just so much history there. There's this beautiful atrium outside. There was all these albums on the wall, and everyone was really nice. We got to see like a live band record, and that was really nice too. After that, we had a meal, and then we parted ways, and we all went back home. That was the whole visit. That was the whole trip, you know. And now it's time for me to tell you the answers of these questions you guys asked me to ask REL. So, first question comes from Billy the Stalker. He wanted to know, when REL makes a new product or is in the development stage, are there any specific measurements that they're looking for or looking at or value? I asked the engineer this question, and he said wattage was one such measurement they took very seriously. They always want to make sure the amplifier puts out more wattage than they claim. And they also want to make sure they stress test the hell out of these things. He said the S850 plate amp that's rated for 850 was stress tested at 1200 watts for 6 minutes straight. I told John Hunter about that. I'm like, hey, your engineer told me, you know, you guys did this crazy stress test. Like that's like, congratulations for like just being so dedicated. And he goes, oh, that's not the whole story. He was being conservative. We did stress test it at 1200 watts for 6 minutes. We also stress tested it to 1400 watts RMS for 3 minutes. And I was like, that's insane. That's insane. So the plate amp in the S850, very capable, very capable. Let's see what else we got here. Darfman Cometh asks, will we ever see magnetic grills on Series TX? I asked John Hunter. He said, nope. And this is the reason. He said they interact with a lot of REL customers. And they said a lot of REL customers actually own their subwoofers for 15 to 20 years. And magnets lose the bulk of their strength or a lot of their strength around the 6 to 7 year mark. So he said, while We could get a magnetic grill to work. REL grills are made of wood. They're very thick. They have some mass to them. He said it might hold that grill for a period of time, but around year 6 or 7, that magnet's going to lose some of its strength. That grill may begin to rattle or just fall off entirely. We don't want that. We need to make sure that grill is going to hold for the life of the subwoofer. And it seems like people are, I mean, you can go on forums and see there are guys using REL subwoofers that are 20 years old and they're still kicking. So that was pretty nice that they're that forward thinking, that they think that far out. Let's see what else we got here. Ray Balderas 1367 says, what's the smallest room size REL recommends for a pair of the new Series S? And the answer I got from REL was really interesting. They're like, hey, it's not all about room size. I forgot to tell you guys this. They took us upstairs in their office where they set up this tiny room that was maybe 5 feet wide. And the purpose of this room was to show us what was possible in a really confined space. So anyways, I digress. Series S, the new Series S, was designed to work better in small rooms, but REL's answer was it's not just the size of the room, it's also the shape of the room and what speakers you're going to be pairing it with. So they recommended you email them or call them to get the best guidance on what the best subwoofer is for your space. And they went on to say, oftentimes we get people calling asking about Series S. We end up recommending Series TX instead. So you might end up saving money by calling them. What else do we got here? DeMarcan asks if there's any future technologies REL has their eye on. And I asked John Hunter this question, and he's like, we're keeping our eye on GaNFET Class D amps. They're curious to see where that goes. And they are keeping their eye on certain manufacturing technologies as it relates to shaping and forming wood. I thought that was interesting because if that technology improves or becomes more affordable, we might see a day where Series S has some of those beautiful radius cabinets the way, you know, Reference does, like number 32. That would be incredible. He didn't say that would happen, but I'd imagine if they're keeping an eye on that, we might see those beautiful radius cabinets on some of the more affordable subs, right? Let's see here. Nuki 1941 wanted to know, is it bad if your subwoofer is more articulate or a little bit quicker than a good pair of speakers? And I asked John Hunter this question and he said, no, it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. A lot of their theater customers tend to play subwoofers behind the speakers. So you've already got like a 1 to 3 millisecond delay just by doing that. So you actually want your subwoofer to be quicker. I know us audiophiles tend to put the subwoofer next to the speakers, but not everyone does that. Additionally, the bass that a subwoofer produces is so much more and so much fuller than what your speakers produce. If your subwoofer is more articulate, it is going to enhance the experience. So you do want your subwoofer to be pretty darn good. AJ ZL8BZ wanted to know, sorry guys, does the new Series S range play well with the outgoing Series S range in terms of overall system integration? REL said yes, they will integrate perfectly. That should not be a problem. However, they always recommend on your main stage left and right, if you can match subs, that is absolutely ideal. If you cannot, you know, outgoing Series S and new Series S do integrate well together very nicely. This screen name, Roaring58, that's a great screen name. He said, or wanted to know, if there were any cool stories or, you know, challenges, you know, REL had during Series S development. John Hunter said, you know, during the time Series S started development, this was, you know, during a global supply chain issue, right? So he's like, those supply chain issues, while very frustrating, actually gave birth to some ideas and approaches that ended up creating a better product. And I just thought that was pretty cool that they remained solution focused like that. Craig Foreman 903. Craig Foreman 903 wanted to know if there was anything REL could share about improvements to the new drivers or filters. And I didn't ask REL that question because REL has their own dedicated video where they cover that type of stuff on their own YouTube channel if anyone wants to check that out. Novalicious asked the $1 million question. He wanted to know if someone had the money to afford a pair of number 32s or a 6-pack of S550s, which at full retail are roughly the same price, like what should they choose? And that was a crazy question. Love that question. And John Hunter said, when comparing those two, what's more important and what's going to dictate the decision is going to be what speakers they're pairing up to and the room. So if anyone, has $20,000 to put into subwoofers and you're honestly considering those two differences, I recommend you reach out to REL directly, let them know what speakers you'll be using, what the room looks like, maybe send them a picture, and they will help point you in the right direction on whether the right choice for you is a 6-pack of S550s or a pair of number 32s. Last question. PMIZ7959 is curious how the new S850 compares to the outgoing Carbon Special, or how the new Carbon Black compares to the Carbon Special. Got it. So I can answer those questions. I did not ask her all those questions because I can answer them. I have an 850 review sample. So how the Carbon Black label compares to the outgoing Carbon Special, I'll tell you this. The original Carbon Special, fairly warm. New Carbon Special Black label, slightly less warm, tonally a little bit more neutral, has more output, more dynamics, things like that. That's in a nutshell, right? How S850 compares to outgoing Carbon Special is really interesting. And I confirmed this with John Hunter. I was like, hey, I own Carbon Specials. I have the S850 review sample. Tell me if I'm correct or not. I feel like S850, like Carbon Special outgoing, is still a step up from S850, but good Lord, is S850 close? And he's like, yep, yeah, exactly. Right. So and that was kind of the design goal, was to get every sub from the previous gen, get the new version to compete closer to the next one up, right? So new S550 is closer to what S812 was bringing us, right? New S550 is closer to what Carbon Special was bringing us. And I think they did a great job at that. And that is the last question, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This was just a bonus video for fun. I figured I'm going on this trip. Let me tell you guys about it. I'm not a professional content creator where I'm gonna have a cameraman follow me and get all these clips, unfortunately, right? But if you got any questions, this YouTube channel does have a free Discord server. You can also ask your questions in the YouTube comment section below. I'll ask. If your question requires a lot of back and forth dialogue, it's better use my Discord server. If your question is more simple, feel free to use the YouTube comment section below. And until next time, guys, take care.